Hello again, YouTubers, on with SpongeBob 101, back here again on the SpongeBob channel with our SpongeBob episode review video for episode 64, Skill Crane and Good Neighbors. The synopsis states, Squidward's lazy Sunday is constantly interrupted by SpongeBob and Patrick's Good Neighbor Club activities. Also, Squidward becomes obsessed with winning a prize from the Skill Crane. Let's dive right in. Skill Crane is an interesting episode that develops Squidward's character in relation to temptation, addiction, and obsessiveness. Squidward's usually seen as the more mature and classy character as opposed to the delinquents, SpongeBob and Patrick, so it was quite surprising that it was Squidward who fell into Mr. Krabs' trap. In this episode, the Skill Crane machine is delivered to the Krusty Krab at the beginning, and Mr. Krabs suggests that it'll pay for itself in no time. As we progress through the episode, it is clear that Mr. Krabs is absolutely correct, because once Mr. Krabs lets SpongeBob and Squidward each have a free try, the plan kicks into high gear, capitalizing on the fact that Squidward simply cannot bear to lose out to SpongeBob. As per the narrative, Squidward gets more and more addicted to the Skill Crane the more he loses, thanks to the combination of the psychological effect of the machine, of course, and the desperation to get a win. Eventually, he even gives Krabs the deed to his house, along with every lost cent he had, just so he could try to win. And what came of it? Nothing. He was a loser through and through. SpongeBob then reveals that there is a secret to winning on the machine. Basically closing your eyes and being the crane. I guess that's a method of focusing, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't work in real life since you can't even see anything. Then again, I've never won anything from a crane machine cause I think crane machines are scams out there to rip you off. Squidward actually succeeds for once, however, winning a teddy bear, and he rubs his victory in the face of the entire Krusty Krab. Later that day, on the way home, he spots a real-life crane like an actual crane, and for some reason decides to climb on board and uses his, quote, magic touch to operate it. And it destroys Bikini Bottom's new mall in the process, as well as the Krusty Krab. The ending of the episode is rather silly, with SpongeBob trying to use the crane to pick Squidward up, who is surrounded by construction workers, but only retrieving Squidward's teddy bear toy. The plot actually has a lot of hidden messaging behind it. First, self-control is key. You have to think about your actions and whether they are actually reasonable or impulsive in nature. So the message there would be picking the right battles and don't push on when there is no practical reason to. Second, addiction can come over you even from the most innocent looking things like a skill crane. It can do so without you actually realizing it. It's up to you to be able to discern things. In this episode, Squidward basically took the fall to present these useful learning points, and while the literal story is extremely silly and even painful to watch at times with Squidward being ripped off to the max, I think the underlying messaging is a valuable lesson for everyone. The plot gets a 7 out of 10. Animation gets 6 out of 10. There's nothing special to talk about here. Craziest scenes include exchanging cash for quarters, obsession with the cranes. While Squidward was at home, he couldn't even sleep, and the out-of-control crane at the end of the episode. Unique characteristics also gets a 6 out of 10. This episode is entirely focused on Squidward's character, which is definitely less common than, say, Squidward being annoyed by SpongeBob and Patrick, which coincidentally happens to be the theme of the next episode. All in all, Skill Crane gets a 19 out of 30 from me. Seriously folks, those arcade machines are out there to rip us all off. Beware. Good Neighbors is a episode about really bad neighbors who think they are doing a good job being neighbors. I get that the whole plot is basically meant to show Squidward fuming as a result of his entire Sunday being invaded by SpongeBob and Patrick, but is it really an entertaining plot? I would argue no. Just watching this episode makes me feel annoyed, which might explain why I haven't watched it for a really long time. The episode begins with Squidward waking up and immediately seeing SpongeBob. SpongeBob is kicked out, and then tries to bring Squidward his newspapers and ruins it as well. Just when Squidward is trying to relax, SpongeBob and Patrick declare Squidward President of the Order of the Good Neighbor Lodge. Squidward obviously isn't interested in this nonsense, but in order to get them off his back, he tells them to go paint the trees polka dot. And they come back, accidentally spraying paint into Squidward's face, and two bystanding bottomites think he's really sick and rush him off to the hospital, wasting even more of his Sunday time. Then, the relaxing foot massage masseuse arrives, and SpongeBob and Patrick make use of him to the fury of Squidward, who arrives home just in time for the masseuse to call his time up. Squidward is pissed, and then he sees a flyer for a new security system, 5000, and has a brain blast. Yeah, Jimmy Neutron reference, I know. He sets it up, but SpongeBob and Patrick still manage to enter the house to present Squidward with a cake, saying, "Sorry for bugging you so much." The system doesn't see them as intruders, but once Squidward kicks the monitor, it zaps him and then goes haywire, the cake falling on it, of course, turning Squidward's house into a robot and kicking Squidward out of it. While Squidward relaxes on the rock in a very painful-looking position, his house is meanwhile wreaking havoc in Bikini Bottom, Wormy style, and eventually the house returns to Squidward, crashing on top of him after SpongeBob presses the turn-off button. As if Squidward didn't already suffer enough, the whole city shows up and gives him a community sentence for the rest of his life. He has to now clean up at Bikini Bottom every single Sunday for the rest of his life. Unlike Skill Crane, where Squidward essentially dug his own grave, here we have a simple cephalopod just trying to enjoy some alone time on the only free day he has away from work. Clearly, SpongeBob and Patrick felt that it was too much to ask from them. The plot gets a 4 out of 10. I get the various plot devices used, and to a certain extent they are actually quite creative, from the Good Neighbor Lodge to relaxing massage, whatever, right? But the overarching story is extremely annoying. And if you think about it, if SpongeBob and Patrick had just took the hint and left Squidward alone, this episode has literally no reason to exist. And since this episode is built on such a bad and frustrating plot, it continues to be one of my least liked SpongeBob episodes of the season. Animation gets a 6 out of 10. The only scenes I thought were great were the Squidward hollering at SpongeBob and Patrick portions, Squidward getting zapped by the security system, and finally Squidward's house destroying Bikini Bottom. But again, none of these scenes are actually positive in nature. And finally, unique characteristics gets a 2 out of 10. Fundamentally, we just have another annoy Squidward plot, but turned up to 11, like more than the max. The Good Neighbor Lodge would be cool if it actually did something productive. Instead, it really was just another avenue for SpongeBob and Patrick to fool around with Squidward. So overall, I think Good Neighbors is a very bad episode, getting 12 out of 30. Now, those are my opinions about these two episodes. Comment in the box below what you guys think about these two episodes. Make sure to subscribe, like the video, and of course, make sure to keep right here on Ultimate SpongeBob 101. I'll see you guys again real soon for another SpongeBob video. Till then, bye!